All the more reason to enjoy our respite from the insanity of our world and enmesh ourselves in the insanity of the Shelter Coteries world, which is in fact quite mad. But luckily for them, most, if not the entirety of all of their associates, friends, allies, compatriots are equally mad. The world itself has turned topsy-turvy. Up is down, down is up, and if you choose to look for any direction whatsoever, it will only lead you further into the fiery pits of purgatory. And then there's the bad parts of it too, so, there's that. I am very, very happy to be lucidly here and in your presences of your talents and skills. Before diving in, because we are a little bit well past hard start, we are getting the comfortable, fashionably late aspect of it. Are there any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we'd like to round off?
Okay, so we haven't seen Vivi. We just had them bring out the older Disick, right?
Yes.
And they said that he was the gift. Got it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was correct in that. Good.
They brought out the appetizer.
Well, you gotta be prepared. It's always nice to have alternative dishes. There's also the fact that in front of each of you is a small pint-sized glass bottle with its own label. It's clearly made in someone's back room, and by that I mean the graphic design. There's a little fuzzy portion of the label letting you know that it was relatively cheaply and mass produced before being affixed to the bottle. It's not one of the more crisp, clean, clearly professional labels. It's more of a homespun skill. Like, it shows a lot of skill in terms of design concepts, properly balancing your subjects against each other, using a little bit of negative space, and choosing a font that is both legible and artistic. And then sealed inside of that glass bottle is a amber-esque liquid. There's a slightly higher aspect of viscosity to it. As as it was set down in front of you, you can see what's inside slightly moving. And there's a portion at the back of your minds, that little animalistic portion that doesn't really have a voice but has a presence of need. The ever mewling babe in the darkness, the cries that you can't quite ignore, nor can you quite decipher and make out. And it stirs. It's the deeper aspect of the beast rising slightly to the fore with the provocation of what's inside that bottle.
And oh, the insult.
Yes, Hakata and Tremere, the Tay mixing and mingling to such a delicious efficacy. It is has hints of burned or charred cardamom. It has a slight subtle spice. It's almost festive in the hint of, and I can't really tell, is that completely just nutmeg or is it nutmeg and a little cinnamon? It has a lovely nose, and it's surprisingly, despite its inherent sweetness, a little dry. So it's not overpowering. It is a curated vintage that is designed in a multiplicity of ways to be both insult and a gift beyond reproach. Nothing like giving with one hand and taking with the other. Nothing like extending a delicacy that, well, if you knew its provenance, might very well cause a reaction.
Sophia had to start a whole new list.
It's just like Pringles. Once you pop, you cannot stop. So, knowing where we are, and no questions or hypotheses needing to be rounded off or disseminated or dissected for clarity, that being as it is, I'd like to extend my thanks. Your skills and efforts through all of these many turbulent ups and downs of these particular characters is beyond any real measure. You all, I'm not sure if you quite grasp how skillfully and succinctly we are able to explore even when in negative space, a lot of heady subject matters. How we, through our play, through your efforts, we are able to dive into this seemingly endless well of what lays out there in the dark, in our world and in this fantasy world that we inhabit. We're able to touch on subjects that spark thought, that are able to communicate the truth of that character's moment in a safe and, dare I say, almost a loving environment. Because once it's all said and done, I can't tell you the number of times we're in those deeper, darker moments where the ability to communicate with each other and talk about it afterwards, or examine it with the safe distance of being here in our world, that, yeah, there's no other way to say it. There's no other way to invest it with more value. There's no price that I can put on it. And I thank you for those experiences and those moments. Care of your skill. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. And without too much further ado, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins, Season 18, Episode 3, The Magic of Noon. Knowing where we are with the characters in the coterie, having left in the middle of the scene, several shoes having dropped from on high as if thrown by Damocles over his neighbor's fence, we find ourselves in the banquet area of the Three Happiness restaurant, the gateway drug to all of the, unfortunately, westernized exoticism of Chicago's Chinatown. It sits at the mouth of the intersection of Wentworth and Cermak. It's visible from the expressway. It's visible from the Red Line, the major artery that transports hundreds of thousands of people a week from one portion of the city to the other. It sits at the apex of a swirling vortex of powers, energies, and gateways into other worlds. And having been damaged almost irreparably, it having been beset and attacked, it was a glaring black eye to the One Kwai community of Chicago, one of the largest courts in the entirety of the Midwest. In fact, as far as those in the know are concerned, it is the court of the entirety of the Midwest, from the Upper all the way down to the Gulf Coast, as far east as Philadelphia and as far west as the Grand Canyon. It sits as a beacon, a clarion call, the light to which many One Kwai moths are drawn, because it is a captain of industry and trade. It is a fortress of solitude and protection, and up until recently, an inviolate nation unto itself in the lands of night that the kindred inhabit. Even the dreaded and feared Lupine watched their steps when entering into this space. So them taking a loss that required months and months of heavy lifting, of repairing ties to the local community as well as its neighbors, months and months of efforts of digging out from beneath the failing that was the near destruction of the Three Happiness and all that entailed. But now that moment is upon us. The One Kwai have strengthened their resolve. They've strengthened their ties, and they've rebuilt themselves to be once more inviolate here. And as had been the case for decades and near unto a century before, their tie to the kindred community excuse me, coming through the open arms and secretive cloisters of the Tremere, the treaty, the armistice being once more negotiated via the Regent of Regents, Abraham DeSable. Save for this time, the Hakadah themselves are active participants at the table. The shining example of what the Hakadah could do if treated as an ally, sitting here. The coterie, the shelter coterie, now fully believed and counted on as being the strong right hand of the Chicago Hakata, the strong right hand of the family, are at this table. They are in this moment. And with the realization of what lay before them and what lay on the horizon, we dive into the scene. The bottles, the gifts exchange from the One Kwai to the Tremere and the Hakata delegates. The gift of the Tremere brought forward the elder Disick, strangely hale and hearty, though it is clear that he has been suffering this while. It is clear that he has been the subject of enhanced interrogation techniques, which have left his body whole, but the scars on his soul, the scars on his mind are visible. Small little telltale things. The fact that he's a little gaunter than he once was when last seen by this particular group of kindred. The fact that he's no longer wearing his glasses. The slight, small tremor. And even though there's no outward manifestation of fear, there's no screaming, there's no wide-eyed staring or what have you, the almost perfectly clenched jaw, the fact that he's chewing at the inside of his cheek, the fact that he's warily watching, not jumping, not twitchy, but warily, silently watching what is happening. All signs that other things are afoot. So diving in, anti-alphabetical, what is it that we might be doing? The bottles have just been freshly sat.
Smile and incline her head. Wait for the meeting to progress. She doesn't have anything to add. In fact, she's kind of ambushed by being put here. And that's also on the list.
Now, as she silently takes in everything that's happening around her, is she attempting to put forth an image? Is she attempting to carve some affect out of her seeming? Is she attempting to keep her cards to herself? Is she attempting to pull the wool over those watching?
She will attempt to present an image of confidence, competence, and strength. But for the most part, she'll remain blank.
Excellent. That being the case, because it is a matter of composure, not letting anything shine through, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll either your composure and leadership, performance, or persuasion?
Leadership it is.
And while that is in the offing, sliding right along up our totem pole of present players, our characters sitting there in this moment, because it is even without all of the history of the small things touched on, you have a human, a mortal, an unghouled individual still with the grace of light in this meeting of monsters, in this meeting of the One Kwai and the kindred. There's usually but one outcome. Where does Miriam stand in regards to this?
Let's see. Well, Miriam has only met the guy once, and she did try to protect him from this black fog. So she's probably not too thrilled with this. Just to clarify, they've all been served the wine-ish, or just Sophia?
No, every present kindred has received a token of the One Kwai's appreciation for this moment.
Alright. perfect. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm like, wait, or was it just the... Okay. Anyway, aside the point. So Miriam will just set it down, kind of swirl it and sniff it, the etiquette in her. And she will just watch for a moment, and then she will, much like a schoolgirl, raise her hand.
As she's swirling the liquid inside of her goblet, inside of her glass, is she trying to determine its provenance? Is she trying to measure the value of it? Is she simply using it as a stall tactic while she collects her thoughts as she raises her hand?
Mostly as a stall tactic. She knows that it's like appropriate because she wasn't raised by the lower classes that she was wealthy, or she from a family of wealth, so she understands the etiquette even if it's not her total thing.
Okay, so as she raises her hand, we slide along right at that exact moment. There have been hundreds of moments where the coterie, as they are, have been surrounded by nothing but a sea of tension, with dramatic outcomes being the most likely of anything that they'd be repaid for existing in those moments. There is unfinished business, and then there is what this is. Lucio, having been there, having lived inside Alston's head for a few moments, Lucio having been there when you all rescued and collected the Elder Dizzy, Lucio being there on several instances where the coterie have had to make a decision that had nothing but a loss of life inherent. Where does he sit as Sophia, blank face to the world, being calm, cool, and collected, a shining signal that no matter what happens, everything will work out one way or the other? As Miriam slowly raises her hand after, in that brief flickering moment, she's no longer the common idea that is inherent with tattoos and the trappings of someone who exists for their art. In that moment, there's a grace that is not easily won. It's not easily had, especially in this day and age, and with the inherent biases of those who engage in, body modifications. There's a biases that exist there for most individuals who are not part of that community. Even as well regarded as the art is these days, there is still a distance and several other considerations at play. So with all of that sitting there before him, as Miriam's raising her hand, Sophia is putting forth the image of calm reserve, what is happening? What is going through Lucio's mind?
Almost reached for the wrong mute button there. So, Lucio is not happy about any of what's just happened. He is doing his best not to show it, but he is already convinced that this entire meeting is either a trap or is just going to be designed to fuck with their heads as much as possible. He is on alert to look for any signs of any of the gathered members here attempting to pull something over on the others. But otherwise, he is doing his best to remain calm because, number one, he knows if he says anything, it's going to reflect poorly on them. And number two, he knows that this is ultimately best handled by Sophia because she is the de facto leader at the moment. So it's best for him to not say anything until spoken to.
So he's biting back his natural unnatural, though it might be, but he's biting back his natural drive and strive to act on and defeat the common evils that exist in the world. He knows what the outcome of a human amongst this group of individuals, what the usual outcome might be. The best they can hope for is slavery, mental complete domination, at best. Though it's a sad outcome that complete and total slavery is the best possible outcome.
Yes, he is not happy about it, but he knows he has to keep his mouth shut at the moment.
Excellent. That being the case, would you be so kind as to roll your resolve plus either etiquette, insight, or subterfuge? And while that roll is happening, as Miriam's hand slowly raises as if drifting up through an iceberg, melting through excessive global warming, shearing off portions of itself as her hand breaks the surface and rises towards attracting the gaze and attention. And much like every other kindred gathered, Hestia, there is no doubt in your mind what the outcome is. There is no doubt in your mind. It is a sad realization for where she is and all of the many things that have changed for her, to know that she's actively looking towards the idea of a clean death for the elder Dizek as a reward, as the upside of things. If he receives a clean death, if he's not bled for information, if he's not toyed with, if he's not forced into permanent slavery, if his mind isn't shattered. There's Sophia, calm and stoic, a shining example of grace under fire. There's Miriam, her hands drifting skyward slowly as if it's the hand of fate rising up out of the dark. And there's Lucio, clearly because of how well you've known him, how you've watched him become who he is. There is an inner turmoil that is very much dancing on his sense of ethics and morality at play. And while that is happening, what is Hestia doing?
She don't like all this silent shit. She knows somewhat of why people are doing it, but that's not her. She looks at DuSable and clears her throat. While I understand why you chose this venue as a meeting place, DuSable, and I agree, everything we want to work towards peace, that's wonderful. I think we should talk, me and you, have a little bit of a side chat about your choice of gift, as it were, just so that we are aware of all the cards being on the table, because I wouldn't want there to be a mistake made. Like I said, again, I get why you chose this place. I wouldn't have picked here, but I get it. She gives him a shit-eating grin.
And as Hestia lets fly, as her moral indignation at this seeming affront comes flowing into the air and space, Miriam's hand breaks the surface as DuSable is preparing to. He frowns for a second and he chews at his lip for a split micro nanosecond. It's a small thing, so small that it's commonplace in most others. Hestia, would you be so kind, as Miriam's hand raises and Dusable begins to speak, would you be so kind as to roll your intelligence and either insight or awareness? And while that roll is happening, Miriam, your hand is up, and the Elder One Quad, the leader of this particular gathering, looks towards you as Hestia begins speaking. What is it that you're saying? You are sure that there are eyes on you, and he has intentions on you. As Hestia speaking,
Okay.
what is it that you say?
In a second. I got the intelligence and what?
Either insight or awareness.
Miriam says, I understand that it may not be my place, and I am new to your association, and unfortunately I was not present during the events that have brought everyone into conflict. So I like to believe that I may be somewhat of a neutral party in these proceedings. But it is my understanding that this gentleman here was important to one of the deceased of my coterie here. And I understand that he is also important to Vivi. And I'm wondering if this gift is not meant to be an insult to her and their friend's memory. Is that a gift that is appropriate for this situation?
The One Quad looks between the all too suddenly frail seeming human and Dusable, who was that a bit of nervousness that passed across his face? Interesting. We will keep that in mind. And as he stutter steps, Dusable rises into the space, once more having settled himself mentally. Yes, I suppose that we should have a conversation. One member of our side of society to another. However, this is most pressing. And while, yes, there is no small amount of insult to be had all around, that is the nature of diplomacy, smiling through it all. But there is value to this particular individual acting as a gift to appease and hopefully strengthen our ties of non-interference. The knowledge that he has in regards to the operations here in Chinatown, the knowledge that he manages to hold on to, the knowledge that he hints at being aware of, though conditioned to hold out, is an element of sharing intelligence, one community to the next. The secrets that he holds, the power of knowledge, is far more valuable than any offended sensibilities. And it's far more valuable than incidental, accidental affronts. Because that is not the entire purpose of his presence being here. The pain of losing someone or something is something that we all have dealt with. And we all will continue dealing with as long as the promise of immortality exists for us. Though, if the Hakata, if your contingent would perhaps like to purchase this particular gift and offer something of equal or greater value in exchange, I am more than amenable to do so. I'm more than willing to, and forgive me, your khanship. But if the Hekata would like to perhaps intercede and purchase this gift through a extension of favors and boons towards you in our stead, I don't see why we would not be able to find some common ground for this to work for all. After all, there's not very much that can match the value of the small gift that you have extended to us.
The Hekata, in fact, would not. The Hekata care not at all for this mortal.
And the older one, Kwai, looks between the two parties, looks towards the mostly unpartaken of glasses in front of everyone. Well, Mr. Regent Dusable, I believe that is a statement of value. Perhaps this extraordinary gift of intelligence that you are offering holds not as much value as you believe. Quite. I'm sorry that you all feel as such, but I assure you that as the founding member of a burgeoning hunters association, that this individual holds intelligence that, well, far be it for me to attempt to sell you on the matter. Luckily, forethought being what it is, and he looks towards Sun Che, who smiles. And when she does, the only lightly iridescent glow of her eyes brightens until it is, in fact, visible, even in the well-lit banquet hall of the Three Happiness. The glow is unmistakable. There's actual light filtration escaping her gaze. There is a secret, though publicly knowledgeable, that our lovely Sun Che is both kindred as well as other. And while you may not see the value of intelligence of the mortal communities, I assure you. And he moves towards Sun Che, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder as the glow from her eyes brightens by degrees, quicker and quicker. I assure you that what Sun Che might bring to bear would be of inestimable value. Well, this is happening based on your role, Hestia. That small bit of stress that filtered across his face, that small biting of his cheek, that small stumbling to regain his composure. You've seen it before. You witnessed it before, but it's not an affectation of Dusable. It was an aphorism and learned behavior to mitigate some stress of another individual. As you cipher through your memories, trying to put a name to the face and a face to the name, and it dances at the tip of your tongue, hearing that and watching Sun Che begin to glow, it's impossible to not hear a countdown in your head. T-5, T-4.
Seeing as the Hekata contingent doesn't want this man's life of their own and is unwilling to pay for him. I think we are pretty much done with discussion here. That means we don't need to be here any further, and we're going to wish you all a good evening. And she looks at the other two, making it very clear they should leave, and they should leave now. Like, head nod to the door. And out of some small, I guess, amount of respect, even though this was supposed to solve some stuff between them and Sophia too, and they kind of came in as a united front, she looks at Sophia. Yeah. She nods towards Sunshade. That's not good, by the way, and heads towards the fucking door.
Furia will smile softly and take a sip or drink, buying her a second. But please consider this. Knowledge that was undertaken in search of someone he loves. Do you think he was going to do harm with that? Or was he just trying to find a person that he loved? It's very human. And she will stand up and follow Hestia.
Lucio, Sophia, as Hestia and Miriam begin making their way out, what is it that you two are doing?
Sophia is going to sit. She came here for a reason. She doesn't have time to throw tantrums.
Lucio is also here for a reason, so he is going to sit as well. We need to get Vivi out of here. He did not say that out loud, he's just thinking that.
Okay. So, as Miriam and Hestia are allowed to escape the moment, as they are allowed to make their way towards the door, several things happen at once, as they always do. When chaos is a ladder, any moment of tension could precipitate an immediate rise or an immediate drowning of those involved. As Hestia and Miriam make it to the door, the glow from Sunche's eyes is nearly blinding as Sophia and Lucio sit. DuSable, standing to her left, is mostly protected from the light radiation emanating from their end. The Wan Kwai can't claim such a thing, as they are sitting across from the kindred delegates, both Hekata and Camarilla. Erichto, who is to Sunche's right, a half a step behind her, is also equally not in the direct pathways of what ripples and emanates from her. Sophia knows the dead. Sophia knows many of the entities that exist on the other side of the shroud, if not directly, by reputation. There are things that exist there that are even wrong for that holding space of energies of the ones living. This is such a thing. This being explained so much of why Don Castiglione has been able to wrest as much control as he has on the other side. A being that was meant to sit upon the throne. A being meant solely for the destruction of the what quantifies as the energy of the human soul. A being able to soul forge on a whim. A being able to rewrite the laws and rules of its immediate area across the veil. Bound to undying flesh with the promise of immortality in this world and the next. And you realize, both you and Lucio sitting there, that you are at ground zero of what was supposed to be an assassination attempt. Because there's no way that you would pull the pin on that particular grenade if there was anything save death in store. And you notice the light control that DuSable has on Sun Che, as if he's coaxing that energy forth and into this space. And by extension, the Hekata are accessories before, during, and after the fact. It is a cold bit of absolute barbaric diplomacy, tying the Camarilla and the Hekata together here in Chicago by sharing the act of disseminating and obliterating the ranking powers of the One Kwai. And as the energy pours forth from Sun Che, DuSable looks over his shoulder towards Sophia and smiles, inclining his head. It is clear that it is an act of charitability. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for taking part, so that you can see what they might bring to bear, even without any other cards to play. And as the energy reaches the full threshold and that being eases forth from the dead flesh that is Sun Che, you know that the moment is upon you. In for a penny, in for a pound. The guards that are posted around the banquet hall, moving to try to protect the Khan, the leader of the One Kwai, with their bodies. The guards being no full match as DuSable and the Aristo step back while still maintaining contact, physical touch with Sun Che. They're chanting and murmuring, witnessing this show of power. What is it that Sophia and Lucio are attempting to do, or attempting to not do?
Sophia will very subtly reach her arm or hand out to stop Lucio from doing anything, or indicate that he shouldn't do anything.
And Lucio is taking the hint.
While outside, as the cries of pain, the exclamations of shock, dismay, and swearing of vengeance begins to reach your ears as the door closes, What is Hestia and Miriam going to do?
You hear that, don't you? That's why I wanted us to get out. If there's anything left of those two idiots when this is all done, we can go rescue them, I guess. I don't know whether DuSable was planning on killing all of everybody in the room or just specific people in the room. And I didn't want to be on the wrong end of guessing whether I was one of those people that was going to be killed in the room.
So we sit and wait?
Well, actually, I wonder if they brought Vivi with them, or whether or not they would have left her at the Chantry House.
Well, I guess we could search if they have a car here? A hearse, maybe?
That, I would say we could go through the basement. The basement's hella creepy, and it's full of fucking things you probably don't want to see.
Please, I had a pirate living in my head.
Okay, your funeral. And I will lead Miriam towards where I remember. Even though it burnt down, they would still, like, I guess, leave the basement where the basement is supposed to be, right? So she's gonna go look for the door to the basement.
Easier done than said. The distractions of what is happening in the banquet hall are pulling those who are able-bodied and near enough at hand into the meeting. Even though it is a private, soft opening, the kitchen staff and the employees of the Three Happiness are milling about the building. They're going about their day. Those who are inured to the sounds of chaos and violence are literally practicing the menu, fixing dishes and preparing stock. As you all make your way around the side of the building, between where the parking lot and the red line and Three Happiness are, the door, as always, is mostly open to allow a breeze to enter into the building. It's clear that the employees who are still working here, or now working here, utilize some of the same habits as those who had worked here previously. The need to step outside and have a smoke every once in a while. You can see a small mound of discarded cigarette butts and ash about the space. And taking the 3 steps down initially to enter into the actual stairwell leading into the building, there's a before and after moment for most people. It's usually something traumatic, usually something large. It is usually something that sears the moment into the mind. And that is where Miriam and Hestia are. There's a pall over that space. You know that once you cross that threshold, that what this night was supposed to be is not what this night will be. There's a power inherent, even inured though you are through floating and soaking in the power of the shelter itself, the haven. There's a difference in what is emanating from that darkened space. There's a difference for Hestia because she, thanks to Clyde and Dizzy, knows full well what sort of processing center operates from the basement of the Three Happiness. For Miriam, it is an absence of light, not an overpowering sense of darkness, but it is as if there is the absence of light radiating from within that space.
absence of light like Lucio and his friends sort of absence of light, or just a general, almost natural absence of light?
The distilled essence of what Lucio does.
Miriam will stand there for a second and cross her arms and tilt her head to the side. That looks bad.
Fair warning also, if you see somebody you think you know, don't reach out and touch them, okay? This place is warded up the wazoo.
Amazing. So I should expect to see dead pirates and ballet dancers.
No, I'm pretty sure they were on the roof and got burnt to a crisp. But other people, like, maybe somebody that might have gone missing a couple months ago, that sort of thing.
The hedging it back to what mentioning someone who may have gone missing months ago immediately makes Miriam aware as to the deficit that rocketed through her community. The absence of Mama Walde, the absence of the upper echelons of the Baham, of the Bahari, is without a shadow of a doubt a stain on the city. She lost her protections. She lost her semblance of community. She lost a good portion of the acclaim that she had built up, what she has sacrificed to build through her dedication to her art, through her need to create instead of destroy like all of the others. And while she was not a practicing fully devout Bahari, she wasn't a Lilin. She was more of a lapsed Lilin. Their goals are admirable. Creating anew, using the pain of continued existence to find an enlightened space, a way to balance the worst aspects of being dead with the worst aspects of being alive, to find a distilled path forward, to create, to sow, to leave something lasting in the world, that it was not solely the providence of darkness. Yes, there's a lot of pain, but the pain was instructive. Yes, there's a lot of suffering, but the suffering was to achieve versus simply to exist, to simply be. It was a goal in mind, a lofty goal, but everyone was bent towards that. And the absence of the upper echelon leaders, the Bahari, has left a void that no one has tried to fill. Everyone's scrabbling for crumbs and bits of power, or bits of selfishness, instead of planting a garden, a legacy that will change or could change how man interacts with man, how kindred interacts with kindred, leaving the world a safer place in this darkness.
All right. Miriam will stand up quite straight. Great posture. Take a deep breath. Well, fortune favors the bold, and she will just walk in.
Does she continue moving forward into that space?
What can Hess feel like if she were to? I hate the idea of going sense the unseen right now, but kind of curiosity, and I don't want to kill the cat, but but it's she wants to be prepared in a way if this is the smart way to go, or whether the circle up behind whatever's going on in the front room is the better way to go, so that they can maybe get Jessic out. Yeah, I guess, can I make that a roll, or what do we recommend here? Would she know better? Which would be a better bet?
Well, it's a gamble, no matter which way you decide to aim. No matter what, it's more of determining and deciphering your own intentions so that you might remain true. No matter what may befall you, the truer you are to your intentions and your goals, the better the outcome, whatever those might be.
She's going to make sure that nothing happens to Miriam and follow her the way they're going.
And speaking of nothing untoward happening to a coterie member, speaking of nothing untoward happening to a party member who's near enough at hand, there is a ethic behind even the cruelest of kindred when they feed. If they go too far, then they reward their victims with death. If they go just enough to wet the whistle, they do everything they can to mitigate and minimize the effects of their actions, the consequences that follow. They disguise the scene as a robbery, or they maybe set a fire, maybe blow up a car, or otherwise engage the individual so that they believe that what happened to them in that moment of strange, unbridled pleasure was a random happenstance that doesn't happen every day, and they should be happy that they managed to survive it and experience it. Blah blah skippy woo woo. Smoke, mirrors, and lies told with nothing but the worst meanings and intentions behind them. But all of that's out of the window. You realize that Dusable and Erichto, their physical contact with Sunche's body and their chanting and their gesticulating is forming and burning into the ground around them a sigil, which looks as if acid has been used to etch it into the imported marble of the floor beneath your feet. The guards moving around you, with Victoria standing watch, with Felix quietly muttering to himself as he uses a elongated index finger to carve into the palm of his left hand. While all of that is happening, Lucio, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it that this was a rout. This was a purposeful exchange of pleasantries to get close enough to unleash hell. Dusable came with a goal. Dusable came with an intention. And his intentions, well, were anything but pure. His intentions were to broker the peace between Tremere and the Hakata, to rout the leadership of Chinatown, to too many layers of back and double back, too many possibilities with no clear goal save the chaos that is springing up around you. The gunfire, the screaming, the cursing in Mandarin and Hmong and several other dialects that you're not entirely sure of. The steadfast adherence of the Tremere who stick together throughout this. What are Lucio and Sophia doing as unbridled hell is unleashed, and they witness a thing that should not exist even in the imagination, tear through the rank and file of the gathered Wan Kwai, sealing off exits, blocking those in, focused on destruction, while the elder Dizzy, somehow released from whatever it held, is now crouched and ducking behind one of the tables, attempting to spy a way to escape all of the flying bodies, the hurled bullets, the screams, and the black fire erupting from various appendages of the Wan Kwai as they charge forward with the idea of returning violence for violence, swearing revenge, and otherwise making a mess of the banquet room.
So you said there's all the exits are blocked currently.
The Wan Kwai rushing into the room, yeah, are covering most of the exits. You could, with the four of you, you all could easily probably make a hole and escape if you so chose. Or, obviously, you four, putting your minds together, could assist the Tremere in routing the Wan Kwai.
Seeing the chaos unfold, Lucio looks to Sophia. Alright, do we join in or do we get the fuck out?
I will not force you to participate in something perhaps you do not find tasteful. However, as for me, I am now implicated in this. I will nod to Vittoria at that point and remain in my lap neatly.
How perceptive is Lucio in the moment? Is he more concerned about assuring that no one gets close enough to him, or did he catch that small interchange and interplay between Sophia and Vittoria?
Well, considering that his attention was focused on Sophia at that moment, he probably would have.
There's a very dark click in his head as Sophia passes along the gold code to Victoria. There's a reserve that she's always had. There was a reserve that Silvio always had. Even in the tense, stressful moments that you've all been bombarded with, there was always a portion held back just in case. The gold code exchange between Sophia and Vittoria removes that. And while, Silvio was Silvio, and while Arsenio is Arsenio, there is a commonality in watching Vittoria's self-wind into action. And the dark click this is what ghouls are for. They can be your shock troop and forward agent in any situation. I'm thinking of Arsenio's experience in doing crime, in perfecting the art of criminality, of being an enforcer of his master's will. You realize that there were several layers and levels unused by Lucio when dealing with his cousin. There were several layers and levels untapped, using him as driver and security guard for his haven, his sisters, during their daytime activities. And watching Vittoria go with no compunctions on whether she needs to leave those others alive, with no compunctions on holding back. The visceral viciousness is almost poetry in motion. The skill at rapid reloading and firing point blank, ensuring that even the undead monsters of the Wan Kwai experience the brass verdict as they have more metal shoved into them than their body can hold. The lead poisoning is very real, and there's a artistic professionalism to how vicious Victoria is. Does Lucio give in and join the Black Parade? Does he let loose the beast that is crawling not far from the surface? Does he tap into the darkness that is at the heart of him, placed there by his father and his sire?
In for a penny, in for a pound. Let's fucking go. And Lucio is going to begin by throwing up prowess and launching at the nearest Wong Kwai he can find. He's hungry.
The last time the Shelter Coterie was in Chinatown, they left a scorched swath of destruction in their wake. Clyde slaughtered a family on the street. Dizzy caused an explosion that they took months to dig themselves out of. In this particular moment, that's exactly where Lucio is. It's hard to not see Dizzy. It's hard to not see Clyde. It's hard to not remember their mad dash into the night with their stolen vehicle to escape the destruction they left in their wake. The sounds of fire trucks storming to the area as if it was a national drive, as if they tapped every firehouse between Chicago and New York. The night lit up with sirens and flashing lights as the coterie escaped via the expressway as quickly as they could, jumping off the expressway and using the side streets to disappear into the night. All of that to say, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your strength plus brawl, and let's go you're using your strength plus melee or strength plus firearms, not natch. How is Lucio going to vent his need for violence?
By sinking his fangs into the nearest Wong Kwai, or the tastiest looking one.
Some habits die hard, and it's hard to not give in to that sommelier's nose that he's developed. He doesn't purposefully sniff and inhale. He doesn't purposefully weigh the merits of this one over that one. But as he witnesses what would be a hero any other day, as the blonde-headed Wong Kwai tackles the beast, using their speed and grace to dodge and duck and slip attacks, to evade blasts of energy that come from some infernal pit. Lucio sizes them up. That speed, that strength, their ability to survive, 4 attacks into this scrum, their ability to push, maneuver, and otherwise engage this supernatural entity that outclasses nearly every undead thing in this building, denotes the power and strength of their blood.
Yep, that's the one.
Would you so kind of go ahead and roll your strength plus brawl, standard DC plus 1.
And I do have prowess up, but just to be absolutely certain, I would also like to rouse strength as well, if I can.
Yes, fire away.
Oh, he's getting even hungrier. It's like starving himself before a meal.
So he's the cousin that purposely didn't eat the day before Thanksgiving so they can make sure that he takes leftovers and eats leftovers and still has seconds and thirds?
Yes. I think I'm doing my math right. You know what? I'll throw in a willpower just to be safe. That's better.
I see. Outcome +1 plus prowess. Yeah, it's a mess. Now, while this is happening, while blood is splattering and flying, and entities are losing their existence, their touch, their connection to their pretending to be alive. What is this Sophia's doing as Vittoria is cutting a swath around them, and as Lucio, caught up in the moment, lends his strength to the carnage, divesting a Wan Kwai of their existence.
She will just sit with her hands folded neatly in her lap. She'll watch DeSable, if not directly out of the corner of her eye.
There is violence, and then there is the horrors that are happening around her. It's almost a trope of the smiling, placid, calm individual in the sea of chaos. But that, in this moment, very much is Sophia. The world is ending. There's a shifting of power in the offing. And Felix, over her right shoulder, adding his strength to the madness. The spirits swirling, doing his bidding. The souls being captured as they escape the remnants of what the Wan Kwai now are in the face of this thing. And Sophia sits calmly, as Lucio has the second best vitae he has sampled in months. The lupine blood was chef's kiss top 5 easily, and if not for this moment, would definitively have been the best vitae that he's managed to get down. But this Wan Kwai has lived a life, and it manifests in a deliciousness that places it above even that of the lupine that he drank down. It places this blood as top tier, hands down, against most other vintages, because there's a vibrancy mixed in with that unctuous, almost mushroom-like sweetness of kindred vitae, the dead that exist in their inanimate, viscous fluid, mixing in with all of that bright, top of the tongue, vibrant vitality, as if they found the perfect way to smoke and fry and bake the absolute perfect bite into this man's blood. The excesses he must have gotten up to, the life he must have attempted to steal and exist within, is without reproach. The only thing that Lucio wishes more than anything else was that there was more to it. 8.5, almost between 8.5 and 10 pints of blood is never enough, especially of this. If there was a way to decant it, damn it, why couldn't he have maybe just knocked this guy out and drug him to the blood czar so that she could process? Oh my God. And on that sentiment, oh my God, much the same, oh my God, though with a completely and totally different meaning, escapes Miriam and Hestia as they entered into the processing plant that is beneath the Three Happiness. Hung from hooks, ensorcelled and inscribed with various script, are 3 rows of 6 clearly long dead kindred. There are tattoos and sigils carved into their flesh, the hooks holding them above the floor, and the miles and miles of tubing plugged into various ports and orifices of those kindred bodies is awe-inspiring. It is the stuff of nightmare fuel, because the tubes very much look moist and slick, almost as if they are artificial umbilical cords. But instead of feeding and providing sustenance, they are eking away every facet of that kindred's existence. And while the cataract dead eyes of the kindred hanging there let you know that they are in fact completely in the land of the dead, or at least they would be if not for all of those ensorcelled chains and sigils carved into their flesh, the still moist looking skin beneath all of that dead flesh, as if there was blood still flowing through those limbs, is not for the faint of heart. And even with Hestia's warning that if you see someone you know, it is hard, your heart goes out to the kindred that is 2 bodies back in the middle row, just to Miriam's left. They were a relatively freshly embraced childer. They originally came from somewhere out east. They survived the road somehow on their own. They survived with no way except for profiting from their own monstrousness, including enslaving themselves to others to get by. But they made their way to Chicago. They found Mama Walde and were embraced into the community. They helped drive up support amongst the blood freaks and donors. They helped spread the word and get members to service, because there's a strength and power in fellowship. And they were turning themselves around, finding a way to balance all of those monstrous drives with the need to find a reason for hope, to not kill them, to not end them. And they were finding it through the Liliths. They were finding it through the Bahari. They were finding it through service to their community. And now the only thing that they are finding is the absence of everything. As every poor, mishandled, mismanaged moment from their living days and their dead days is distilled and sucked from them through those artificial umbilical cords.
We'll stop and frown.
Again, don't touch them. I know it's hard, but it won't get them back if we do. They are literally shells right now. I'm going to try to learn as much as I can, though. And that's literally what Hess focuses on. She starts paying attention to the insignias on the chains and the bodies, and even maybe snapping pictures with her phone. She is not disturbing anything physically, remembering what Alex said that one time happened with Dizzy, but she is going to get as much information out of this as fucking possible. It has to be worth something. It has to go towards something. So that is what she's going to focus on, while kind of keeping an eye on Miriam, so that Miriam doesn't do what she keeps warning her not to do.
Bright side is, Miriam's pretty good with self-control. Unless it comes to drawing. So she's going to do what she does best and help Hestia figure out these sigils by drawing.
A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Everyone has heard that chestnut trotted out in one moment or next. A little light makes the dark seem deeper. A little spark near the fumes of open fuel can make the night so much brighter, and the rest of existence cease to be. A little thing often is the catalyst for a larger event that changes the flow of one's own history. A small detail, a nothing thing any other time. But as you all get close, as Miriam rifles through their bag and produces their sketch pad and begins taking the notations that matter most to them, as they work towards copying nearly perfectly the sigils in the body nearest them, peering close enough to inhale the dry, slightly waxy scent emanating from the kindred hanging from the hooks above their head. The fact that even with that scent sitting there, dancing on the tip of her tongue, she sees a finger move. The child maybe is not as deceased as the others near it. These beings maybe haven't drained it completely of its existence. The finger moves, the toe twitches, the eyes roll cataract gray in their socket, and because of the lack of actual fluid still in the body, it sounds like ill-shaped marbles made of granite and rough-hewn stone sliding along in a socket made of a similar material. The scraping is loud enough to hear. And as far Hestia as she peers in that waxy, dry scent. Washes over her, bits and pieces of past moments shared. There was a night before Karen died where she was in Thornton Township with DuSable. One of the clubs there had a jazz night, and local talents of no small repute made their appearance. And then as one performer exited the stage, DuSable's face paled, and there was clearly a anger growing in him as a tall, lanky, younger version of him stepped up onto the stage. They placed their saxophone in their lips and they created a tune extemporaneously that moved every person in the building to tears. There were no words, of course. They didn't sing, they couldn't while playing their saxophone, but the notes and melodies they were able to pull from their instrument told a story. Well, you're sure everybody had a different idea as to what the story was, but for Hestia it was of having the need and want to connect and being unable to, save for this one thing, this one way forward, and then having that one way forward destroyed, not in an act of aggression, not in an act of hate, but destroyed because of negligence. That's the story that Hester got from that night, from that melody being played. She's not sure exactly why it's mixed and mingling and is bombarding her in the now, but that's what sits on the tip of her mental tongue as she realizes that 4 bodies back in the farthest right rack is Joseph, the former heavy hitter that worked in tandem with Simone at the shelter, who disappeared when he and she went to investigate the shooting gallery in the near North Loop, where they found evidence of the One-Eyed King. Joseph, the mercenary assassin, dark specter of death and brutishness that was their weapon against the dark, who disappeared, who ceased to be, who went up like smoke. There he is, his formerly green eyes now a dull gray, his strangely tanned skin looking washed out and chalky, and those fingernails that she'd witnessed on multiple occasions growing to nearly talon length versions of themselves, caked and filled with dirt. The body carved and issued with sigils various origination. You know, there's some Mandarin, there's some Greek, there's some, you're not sure if that's Amharic or Aramaic, but there's a blending of those Cyrillic into what those sigils actually are. But yeah, she's sure that's Joseph. She's sure, like no one's ever been sure of anything else, that that individual was once a member of the coterie.
I think I have enough, and I think we need to leave. I wish I could burn this place to the ground again. But for now, whatever DuSable's doing upstairs, I hope it fucking works. We need to find a way to see if we can get Disick out. And she heads towards the stairs to get the fuck out of here, because that's too much temptation for her to pull him down and trigger whatever she knows will get triggered if she pulls him down.
All right. Fair enough. Let's go.
As you all, are you going to head up the stairs inside the building or back out the way you came?
Inside.
Inside, yeah.
That'll be fun.
So forward into the dark, leaving this particular space of preparation and draining. As you all make it to the door, you could swear you hear the words whispered from one corpse to the next. Kill me, please. It's low, it's faint, but you are sure of what you hear. You are clear. You are in your right minds. You are present and fully in control of your actions and your thoughts. You know that there's no other force at work, but you hear that as you leave. A plea as you reach the door. A Herculean level of effort. A soul daring to risk it all for a biscuit, to risk it all for that communication. The shroud is there for a reason that keeps those things on the other side from being on this side. And it is clear that these things, these corpses, these bodies are no longer fully this side of the shroud. The souls, no matter how small a kindred soul may actually be, they are still souls at play. And this is not death. This is not the separation of the living soul into the body. in the soul. This is a destroying and shredding of the soul, binding it to the liquid that is imbibed by those who do so. This is distilling that small bit of grace that even the monsters of the dark have, so that when that last bottle, that last decanter, that last shot glass is emptied of whatever liquid, a liqueur that they are distilled into, is drained, that they no longer exist, not as fuel for the armies of the dead on the other side of the shroud, nor with the opportunity of being reborn. No, completely and totally shunted from existence, completely and totally cut off from every semblance of the opportunity to perhaps get a do-over, to perhaps correct any of the issues they've made in their existence, living and undead. No, you are sure that once this processing plant is done with these individuals, they won't exist ever again.
Just as they get to the door and they're about to step through, Hess looks at Miriam. Do you have a lighter or some matches or something? Because I can't leave them that way. It would take too long to free them all. They're just better off burning.
No. She digs her little bag. Looks like best she has is like some pencils. Of course, a mirrored compact, some alcohol swabs. Not unless you can MacGyver something up.
Could she possibly, like, with the alcohol swabs and like one of the pencils, and like make like a big matchstick or something like that, and then chuck it back down the stairs? Are they close to the kitchen?
They're not far from the prep kitchen that would be down here in the basement.
Is there fire in the prep kitchen?
Yes, of course.
Hess looks at Miriam. Start heading up. I'll be right behind you.
Okay.
And as Hestia heads toward the prep kitchen here in the basement, in the processing plant, where these souls are distilled into aperitifs, liqueurs, liquors that are sold around the Midwest, that are sold around the country. On the first floor in the banquet hall, the frenetic pace of chaotic violence is easing as the pockets of Wan Kwai, the holdout security agents, and their attributive associates, their versions of Gould individuals, are on their back feet. You can tell that they are thinking and quickly rallying behind the idea of bringing the house down, though not physically. There is a rebellious idea of pirate victory catching fire amongst them. It is clear that the being released from Sun Che doesn't have the normal weaknesses, or they don't have the access to it. It is clear that, as far as they're concerned, that it is bringing with it the hoary hordes of the deceased, even though that portion is mostly Felix. The draining of their members from a distance is happening via Dusable. The burning of their blood is happening via Erichto. The gormandizing of them being done by Lucio, the savaging of their bodies, making them unable to maneuver the corpses that they are now trapped in due to Toria. But hope is a dangerous thing. And they hope. And they plan. You can see them rally 4 and 5 here, 2 or 3 over there. And they're luring others further towards the edges of the room. Sophia is aware that there are sigils that are in various places, worked into the marble. Their matching accompaniment in the ceiling above and the woodwork. Most wouldn't have time to put it together, and many still don't. But as Sophia is not frantically involved in training or attacking or otherwise engaging the Wan Kuai, she's able to take in the full scope and flow of the battlefield. And it's an excellent idea. You can tell that that one seems to be a circle of protection, though it's turned inwardly. That one seems to be a summoning something. Oh, and that one is a combination of summoning and protection. Interesting. Wonder what that one actually is for. But you see it happening. They're attempting to pull and separate the forces and bring them into the various spaces along the room. While Lucio enjoys the umami-ness of draining down this particular Wan Kuai. What is everyone doing?
Favoring the meal.
Your compliments to the shelf, of course. It's a good thing you don't have to pay full price for this. Truth, you're not really paying much of anything.
What is it that Felix is doing?
He is bringing more and more chattel souls into this space to act as protectors and distracting and allowing them to attempt to possess those around them. It gives them fuel and it gives a little reward, though it seems as if most of them Wan Kuai are strong-willed enough to fight off the souls besetting them. Though, again, they are rallying and luring and pulling individuals to various places along the floor.
In Italian, Sophia will say to be mindful of the sigils and to back off. And then, knowing that at least her sister gets that, she'll watch the other two and see if they heed her warning or not.
Does Lucio speak a patois of collection of Italian phrases in English enough that he would gather some of the gist of that?
I imagine he does, yes.
Being as Felix has not left Sophia's back, he's not at risk for it. However, the soul of the beast that had inhabited Sun Che is, in fact, at risk. Dusabo and Aristo holding Sun Che's corpse up, using it as fuel for what they are doing, aren't really moving themselves, but they are potentially able to be victimized later if they are successful in getting the possessing demon of Sun Che into one of their circles.
So Sun Che is just a conduit now. They're no longer with us.
Nope, she is fuel. her kindred corpse drying and desiccating as the entity is being lured. There's one quiet actually sacrificing their arm to get them further into the room, closer to one of the sigils. Dusable and Erisho are using Sanche's corpse as fuel to, again, feed from a distance and boil the blood inside the one Kwai. There are other things in the offing, but those are the most visible things that they are in the midst of doing.
Do I know how old Felix is?
Yes, at least 70 years, maybe 120 at the outside.
I will ask him briefly in the language if he speaks Enochian.
He responds in Enochian, with a small accent, of course.
In Enochian, she will say, I value your counsel on this, but I'm trying to weigh whether it might be a great tragedy or a great tragedy should our Tremere counterparts meet their end in their assassination attempt.
And that causes him to pause. He looks towards Dusable and Erichto, who are fueling themselves, and realize that they're not, as per usual at this portion of having cast so many effects, they're not drained nor depleted. There's nothing haggard about them. There's no loss of strength, no vitae clinging to their skin. Then he looks at the ground beneath their feet, ceiling above their head, takes in the fact that Dusable hasn't even utilized his cane as of yet. If legends and rumors are to be believed, and when pressed or angry, Dusable has a sword hidden in that cane that he's actually quite adept at. And the cane actually often doubles as a stake. He hasn't gone to his super secret public knowledge weapon as of yet. He's not feeling pressed. So it would take an outright attack to weaken and soften him up. He considers this, and then he looks towards you. As Pater, we are already declaring war on the One Quad. Would they like to engage in a two-pronged fight just yet?
I suppose we should warn them of the trap that they are entering.
To which he, but of course. Oh, Darcy, when you have the opportunity, and he points with his thumb of his casting hand towards Dusable and Erichto. Do be a dear, help our associates. And he goes back to continuing to use his vitae to cast and summon spirits into the now. What he's doing is brute forcing several rituals at once. And while he notices Dusable and Erichto not being drained or looking haggard, he himself is showing the exertions that he's under. It takes no small amount of skill to brute force rituals. It takes no small amount of skill to do so and continue doing so. But at the end of the day, the bill will come due. At the end of the day, the taxes must be paid. At the end of the night, there's a very little chance that there won't be something deleterious that will be affecting him.
Sophia, sitting amidst all this chaos, having with counsel made a decision what her next move is, she will just kind of casually hand the bottle up to him. without even looking, just kind of over her shoulder.
Oh, my. Thank you very much.
You seem to be in a position where you are going to need it far more than I am.
There's something low about watching someone swig an entire pint's worth of vitae. There's something remarkably American college movie-esque about that. Even as quickly as it's done, there's still something very blue-collar about witnessing that in the offing. It's hard for Sophia to not get past that, but it is very clearly something that he either learned or wasn't properly taught out of. And speaking of something not properly taught out of, the prep kitchen in the basement is a wonder. It is 3 galleys of burners and woks and ovens used to prep and par cook and pre-cook and get enough together that at a moment's notice they could actually properly feed a banquet's worth of individuals. Now the thing is, even in the midst of the noises and chaos that Hestia is sure she can hear from upstairs, these are professionals. This is their lives. You see a few of them occasionally pause, but never stop working. They're still prepping, because while it is a soft opening, it is still quantified as a grand opening. So they need everything prepared. They need dishes upon dishes upon dishes, and they are sure that later in the evening that there will be hundreds, if not more, of hungry individuals that have longed for 3 Happinesses cuisine, and they're busy like ants. And there's about 12 of them. And unlike what common sense states, that you shouldn't have anything white, you shouldn't be in shorts, you shouldn't be wearing shoes without backs on them, they are all of the above. You see 2 with cargo shorts on, some with sandals, some with actual full-fledged croc without socks. Others are wearing a chef's toque while using a bar towel as a neckerchief to soak up some of the sweat that they are experiencing. You see knife play and knife skills that should guarantee them a career in the field where they can pretty much write their own check, but they're instead working here in the prep kitchen and at the capital of flyover country in Chicago. Even though Hestia looks nothing like any of the individuals that work in the prep kitchen, they don't give 2 shits. They continue working. One even all but hip checks her as he passes her to get something into the cooler.
Alright, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. It wasn't picking up before, but assuming all the burners are on, that whole hip check thing, what's going to happen is Hess is going to use Blink and upend the biggest wok full of oil into the fire, splashing it on the floor the best she can, and just like hightail it with the oil trailing behind her, catching on fire, hopefully.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your Resolve plus Celerity standard DC?
Resolve. Where is it? Okay, 1, 2. Celerity is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I'm gonna willpower that. There we go. I'll take that. So that was 4.
Indeed. Would you be so kind as you successfully become the Flash? The air behind you grows hotter by 20, then 30, then 40 degrees as there's a whoosh that you manage to outrun in the doing. The entirety of the world behind her is engulfed in screams of pain as fire races across, as the oil that has hit the ground, as the humans in the path of that oil are covered in it, the heat from the fire immediately igniting. Would you be so kind as to roll your unspent willpower plus 1/3 of your humanity, rounded down of course, versus a DC of 3. Because while you have not been touched by the flame nor the oil, it is literally chasing you fast enough and close enough that you can feel the heat of it behind every step forward. As if the fire...
Is it humanity?
Yes, 1/3 your humanity and your unspent willpower. It is as if the fire has come alive and is calling due all the moments where you lit incense or sparked a candle or you've lit a melt using a votive, or all the times that you have failed to make it to a Catholic church and light a candle for those in your memory to say your mea culpas to their souls. It's as if the fire is here to collect a tax for all the moments where you did not heed its danger or where you did not offer a sacrifice to it of wax or incense. And it's coming for you. It has every intention of devouring you as it devours everything in its path.
Well, I take it since that counted willpower, I'm not allowed to use willpower to reroll.
Correct.
Well, there you go. It's a 2.
Speed, you are speed, though not enough of it, as the fire laps at your steps. As you rush back towards the space, using your speed and your body as a guide for the fire, to make a ruin of all of this, to make a mess of things in such a way that they may never rebuild, and if they do, it will never be the same. Is the hope. But hope is dangerous. almost as dangerous as fear, which grips your heart as icy grip, as the tendrils of that fear move through you, making your steps unsteady, not slowing them down, but speeding them up. You gotta be free of this building. You gotta get away from this space. You need to get out. You are effectively in the midst of Rostrect, whatever it takes solely to escape the touch of that flame that's hounding your steps is what you will do. Be that to chew off an arm, run through a brick wall, learn to fly at a moment's notice. Any and all of the above is what Estia sets herself to do as the fear takes over and lets her know that it is the pilot now. This spaceship of flesh that she inhabits is now its plaything, and is going to drive it like it stole it, which it did. And speaking of like it stole it, as you make it to the top stair, Miriam, there's a whoosh, as if all the air in the basement rushes past her, as if it's in a rush to see what's happening upstairs, more so than she is. There is the scent of scalded oil, not quite burned because, well, the heat is taken over too fast for it to do more than immediately, instantaneously scald. There are screams of pain and the scent of cordite wafting up from the stairs behind you. What is it that you do?
I guess I'm going through the door.
That's right. Just because you didn't kill them doesn't also mean you don't have to save them either. Screw that noise. Fire will have its way. And you step into...
It's a mercy, really. They asked for it. Literally. In my head. It's the least I can do.
Well, that's very nice. The voices are back. That's always a good thing.
Right.
You step into the space on the first floor. The sound of death behind you, only matching the sounds of chaotic death here. As you look towards the banquet space, you see 4 and 5, 1 Kwai here, and 2 or 3 there, and 1 or 2 over there, and they're fighting for their very lives, though they're doing it in the most ass-backer way you can imagine. It's almost as if they're luring that great monstrosity that is neither solid nor is it intangible, but yet is able to exist in a middle space, like all of Lucio's shadows that cling to him and move to him and respond to his temperament and his emotions, as they feed themselves to it, luring it further across the floor. You hear Sophia saying something, you're not sure what, it just escaped you as you grow close enough to see and pick out details of the war that has been fought, the bodies that have been dropped, and Lucio, his mouth is bright red, stained with a vibrancy that is surprisingly artistic. The way that it hugs and dribbles and clings to his skin, the way that the shadows dance behind his eyes without actually taking over, the fact that Sophia is sitting as if she is a virginal nun in the midst of this pagan celebration of death. Over her shoulder, Felix, his well-coiffed, near natural, permed afro, aflame with energy. He is carving into his palm, using his finger as if it is a blade, the fingernail having elongated and clearly sharp enough to tear through flesh, as dark vitae wells and pools in his hand. And then Dusable, and Erichto, holding up Sun Che with one hand each as they gesticulate and point and yell and murmur and chant towards the room around them.
Well, I was not expecting to be right back here. So I take everything in, and once again, my first instinct is to go try to help the mortal.
Nah, he can die. It's fine. It's fine. Death comes for you all. So you're going to run across the battlefield towards the mortal, or are you going to try to skulk pad through the battlefield, which would potentially cost you enough time where you won't make it there in time? But you'll do so safer.
I mean, she's not exactly going to skulk because she's not a skulker, but she is going to try to rely on her innate dexterity to get her through.
Excellent. That being the case, would you be so kind as to roll your dexterity and athletics standard DC to avoid the errant blast, the luring of the Wan Kwai, and the monsters that abound all around you? And Lucio, Sophia, seeing Miriam appear in the middle of the battlefield, in the middle of this war, in the middle of this routing and this assassination, what is it that you two are doing?
Sophia will cross her legs demurely. Just kind of waiting for this to all play out.
Assuming Lucio has finished his meal, correct?
Yes, it was divine. Perhaps another would do.
Perhaps, but he did hear Felix tell him to, but decisions. He's gonna let Miriam do her thing. Does Lucio know exactly what Felix wanted him to help the other two with? Because he doesn't understand Enochian. He has no idea what they were talking about.
True. But he did catch a bit of what Sophia had told and instructed Victoria about the floor and the ceiling, about the sigils there.
Ah, that. Okay. So then Lucio will make his way over to Erichto and to Stabble, punching through any Wan Kwai in the way, and will try and relay this information to them, if they're even willing to listen.
Alright, so we're going to need 2 rolls from you, dear sir. First and foremost, would you be so kind as to roll your strength and brawl, and then roll, depending on if you at least have standard successes with that, and no consequences or complications arise, would you then roll, because you're telling the absolute truth, so there will be charisma plus either persuasion Or, performance might help, but no, it'd be more persuasion, or, yeah.
Am I at hunger 0?
You're at hunger 1. You didn't drain any human, unfortunately. No victory without death, the sanguination of a soul.
On the plus side, that means we've also answered the question of, can a kindred diabolarize a Wonkwai? The answer is no. And that is 3 on the Strength and Brawl.
You, surprisingly, with your experiences in dealing with situations that you're not designed to win, you've stared down armies and hordes before. This is old hat. Making your way across a battlefield, making short work of anything and everyone that gets between you and your goal is muscle memory for you. There's a small part of you that's a little sad that that's the case. You've been involved in enough large-scale warfare that this is just clocking in for work. The ghost of adrenaline no longer a real factor. In fact, what's foremost on Lucio's mind is, how can I get more of that in a safer, easier method? It's delicious. Maybe something to do with them actually living, aging. They're immortal, but they age. Maybe that might be the reason why. And he's working at the angles of it as he closes the distance on DuSable and Erdstow. DuSable, as per his usual polite cantankerousness, I do hope you're not going to invite us to another party. This is not necessarily the moment to engage in frivolities. And he makes another chant, and something else across the room snaps, and something screams.
Not at all, but I did want to point out that there are some sigils being made on the floor and ceiling. Sophia seemed concerned about them. I thought you might also be concerned.
I wasn't until now, and you notice that they have nearly lured the beastie, the thing that is neither shadow nor light, that is the approximation of what it might look like to be a member of royalty in hell. Swarthy and scarred and pockmarked and filled with the pain and suffering of a countless number of souls as it devours one after the other of the Wonkwai. You've heard tossed out avatars of the Yamas or some such, but there's the Boshi and so forth and so on that are mixed in. There's just a hodgepodge of different epithets meaning demon being thrown out as they try to lure it further and further across the floor.
I have a feeling if any of us, including that thing over there, get caught in those sigils, it's going to be bad news for all of us.
I would say so, and he stops as the scent of cordite washes over the space, wafting in from the basement. The black acre smoke rushing up the steps, the heat building up beneath the floor at such a rate that the marble begins to sizzle. The blood that has been spilled, the bodies that are now touching it. There are moments where everything changes. This is one such moment. As Miriam, nearly too dizzy, slides towards him, and you see that the leather pants that she's wearing, portions of them have stuck to the floor. And you see Dizek looking at his hands that were formerly on the floor. He was on all fours, but his hands are bright red as if they gotten scalded from being against the marble floor beneath your feet. And that combined with the black acre smoke rushing up the steps, that combined with the scent of cordite, lets everyone know inside the building that whatever is happening downstairs, be it either the entirety of hell opening itself or a dragon being reborn, that there's enough heat on the floor immediately beneath you all that the marble that you're standing on has effectively turned into a griddle. And you all are standing on the said griddle. Or is the case for Sophia sitting upon something that is sitting on that such griddle. What is everyone's intentions?
Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go.
Yeah, seems like a good time to leave.
I, for one, am inclined to agree.
Alright, that be the case with everybody. Be so kind, including Hesha, who's fleeing from the floor but immediately beneath you. Be so kind as to go ahead and roll your, either, if you're going to tough it out and do the whole, grin and bear it to rush downhill towards the door like a linebacker, should be so kind as to roll your composure plus athletics. If you're going to use your skill, grace, and all due agility possible to escape this meal that's being prepared with your bodies, be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity in athletics. Higher the better.
Seems like it might be a good opportunity for me to activate Defy Bane as well.
It most assuredly would.
Hess, in her fear, you said the first thing, she would have since dropped the pan because she's remembering pan has the oil in it. So she would have since, chucked that and fast as she can up the stairs. Door, what door? There is no door. She's getting the fuck out.
Oh, goody. This is great.
I want to confirm our options: Dex and athletics, or composure and athletics. Is that what you said?
Yes. All determined based on how you're choosing to flee. Like if you're doing the full out fast dash, irregardless of anything else, but using your natural grace to do so, that would be your dexterity. If you're attempting to tough it out and tactically escape the situation and would struggle down the fear that comes from being cooked alive, that would be your composure.
Tactical escape it is.
Right. It's the same dice pool for me either way.
I'm gonna say -6 before I add celerity, but she, like I said, she would not be slowing down for any reason. So, should I add that celerity or just fit at the 6?
No, go ahead, add the celerity. That would be fine. Sophia, don't you wish that was either a 1 or a 10 on your rouse? That would have been great.
Would be perfect.
But it's fortitude, so...
Yes, but it's always that fear when you see it. Holy crap. Okay. Cool.
Oh
Guess she
no.
ain't playing.
She not, no. And I'm gonna fuck it up for everyone.
Yes. Because here's the thing. Out of everyone, Miriam is the only kindred near a living entity. Miriam is the only one at, 3 hunger. And Miriam is only able to make it out of the situation through the strength of her beast. I.e., the messy, critical. So, several things happen, as they always do. The bulk of the gathered kindred all but rout the Wan Kwai. The sheer unbridled carnage is a thing to witness. It's such a rarity where it's able to be vented with all due lack of care and concern as to how it might look to others. As the kindred all but make it out. And Sophia is dragged free through the efforts of Vittoria and Felix. It's quite touching how efforts can be combined for whatever reason so that there seems to be some act of heroism. Though the truth of the matter is, Vittoria is indentured to her sister. And Felix needs Vittoria's sister. So the selflessness is absent in their attempt to assure that Vittoria, that Sophia survives. But failing by 2, you will receive too superficial. The floor, the heat, the bodies, compounding the insult of it all. And that's not the case for Miriam. Bleeding, scalding, human, needing to be safe. Now, the decision here, Miriam, you can either feed on him and end him so that he doesn't have to worry about being parboiled alive in his own juices, or you can force him to consume some of your blood and drink from him so that he's hardy enough to escape. After all,
Right. Oh, decisions. But she's not going to leave him to die, so she's gonna, choke it down, buddy. I hate to do this, but you're gonna die otherwise.
Does Sophia see this on her way out?
oh yeah,
Right?
masquerade breach to now a tougher version of a masquerade breach. Yeah, good job.
Right? Ta-da! I mean, she's not gonna let someone die if she can help it.
She will laugh bitterly on her way out at how the mighty have fallen.
Come be my slave for the rest of your existence.
Right. Or, just for a month.
It doesn't really work that way. And here's the thing that first time Domitors learned the hard way. While yes, kindred view it as slavery, those with any sense view what being a ghoul is towards slavery, because that's where it ends up no matter how well thought and planned out you are. The eventuality of it is that. But it's a slavery that those who have tasted the ambrosial effects of Vitae willingly rush towards. The strength, the youth, the hardiness, the growing of your palate until you can smell sounds, you can see emotions. The world opens itself up to you. You're more alive than you have ever been. Your highs are higher than any apex you thought you had visited before. Your lows are all but non-existent, because if you get but another drought, any bad feeling you might have is going to be washed away. And that's the world you opened up for him. While Hestia screams through like a bullet train straight to hell, those things in her path, what is not obliterated through kinetic impact, is torn asunder. The Wan Kwai who still manage to exist and live, they have circulatory systems that actually operate. They have flesh and blood that needs the vitae coursing through their system. Their hearts beat and pump. The few who are unlucky enough to be in Hestia's path of travel look like the leftovers from a Gallagher concert. There is a mad, snarling monstrousness to Hestia as she tears free of the inflamed building. And as you all are outside, free of the soon-to-be wrecked, rebuilt 3 Happiness, twice within a year, this coterie has thrown down the gauntlet of war to the Wan Kwai of the city. Twice now, they've routed the undefeatable. Twice now, they managed to do the impossible. But for the first time, their carnage that is left in their wake solidifies their ties and connection to the Tremere. They have jumped into bed with the only other organization as Byzantine and Machiavellian as the Hekata, and as emissaries of the Hekata, as Pater of the Hekata. You all now have enough dirt that you all were accessories to engender, for the first time ever, a fair and equitable relationship with another kindred organization. It's an interesting feeling, knowing that the chaos that normally haunts your steps and hounds your decisions has somehow become a tool for your favor. So as you all make your way away from Chinatown, as you agree to meet Dusable at Lucio's favorite little out-of-the-way Ethiopian restaurant, we draw to a close with just how close to destruction the coterie came. The fire, the demon, the betrayal of stated intentions, and the unveiling that the Tremere are literally as duplicitous and deceitful as everyone says they might be. I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night all.
Oh, what has Mir...